I would be happy if I felt a little bit of excitement or hope in the whole month. I experienced a drug-induced psychosis, did not believe in herself, and never thought that she would be able to do something great. Maybe I could help others heal. I was like having these like very hopeful thoughts.
In a way, you've become the person that you needed the most. Ellie Haney, welcome into Forever Forward.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I am so excited to be here.
Look, I think we have a lot to talk about today. I know that the listeners want to know about your business and what you've built there, but I also know that the listeners want to know about the person you've built and the resilience you've cultivated and the resolve that you have. So maybe we could start there. Who was Ellie Haney 5 years ago, and who is she today?
I actually love that question because I truly think that, you know, my soul has always been the same. Like I've always been a really good person and, you know, I feel like my soul has always been centered. But 5 years ago, I was a very different person.
Yeah.
And I think that it's almost strange to think about how much has changed, you know, just like with my everyday life. But I think that, you know, Ellie 5 years ago was somebody who did not believe in herself and never thought that she would be able to do something great.
Yeah.
And the best way I can describe Ellie 5 years ago was really just kind of surviving and existing and not really thinking that there was anything out there that would make her like I kind of just was existing and just getting through the day and all. I'm sure, you know, we'll get into it, but I've struggled mentally tremendously with my mental health for most of my life. And it was really, really, really hard for me 5 years ago. And so again, when I'm saying like, I never thought that I would do anything great, like I would be happy if I felt a little bit of excitement or hope, you know, in the whole month. Like I was just in a really dark place.
Really?
And so, yeah.
And it sounds like you were struggling mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about a bit of what that was like and what you were diagnosed with?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first memories, Mike, were really like first memories. I'm talking like kindergarten, first grade. I always remember feeling just really worried about everything. So definitely like early memories of just worry. Like I remember this sounds so like weird, but I remember when I first learned about death, like I learned that like I was going to die when like everybody dies, right? Like,
but there is that moment where you become self-aware, like, wait, I'm not here forever. And also people around me aren't here forever.
Absolutely. And I remember, right. And so I remember that exact moment. I'm pretty sure it was first grade. And I remember I couldn't sleep because I was like, what is the point? Like, why are we all here? Like, just so worried and confused about everything. And then kind of when I got to middle school, high school, started experiencing a lot of social anxiety.
Okay. Constantly
comparing myself to other girls. Like, she's so much skinnier than me, so much prettier than me, tanner, like all these things constantly racing through my mind.
And we live in an area where that's even more highly perpetuated than maybe other places. It's very competitive here, especially so for women.
Absolutely. I was literally just going to say that, like, you know, where we're from, like Fairfield. I love Fairfield.
Me too.
But it's very competitive. It's very
much like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yep.
Is what it feels like.
Absolutely.
Which is maybe good and bad.
Totally. And so definitely, you know, middle school, high school, started experiencing a lot of those emotions. However, mental health I think the mental health conversation has changed so much, even in just the past 3 years, personally. But when I was in middle school, high school, and growing up, even younger, I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't know what depression was. I didn't know that like my feelings were something that I could fix. Like I just thought it was like, that's what it was, right? Like I didn't even know that I was struggling.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to make a long story short, and obviously ask me anything, but I went to college. I went to University of Delaware, fall of 2016. And I felt invincible when I got to school. And so, you know, my parents were fairly strict in high school. And I was never allowed to go to 2 parties in one weekend, always had a curfew. Again, nothing like crazy.
Yeah, right.
But when I got to college, I was like, oh my God.
Like I'm free.
I'm free.
Yeah.
And I can do whatever I want. I can stay out till wee hours of the night. I can drink. I can do drugs, anything I wanted.
Totally.
And I fell in love with it. Like I was like, this is so amazing, whatever. First semester, I just got caught up in it. And so I was not sleeping. I wasn't eating because I was just out all the time. I was drinking all the time, just literally doing whatever I wanted all the time. And I was quickly on academic probation, just not giving a fuck, honestly.
Yeah.
So then this was kind of my turning point with when my mental health, my mental health issues were always there, right? Like as I said, like I always had that anxiety, but I didn't really know what it was. But then right before finals week freshman year, I pretty much had a really bad reaction to drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
So I experienced a drug-induced psychosis right before my winter break of freshman year.
And for those that are unaware, what does that look like, a drug-induced psychosis? What are the types of things that you were doing?
Absolutely. Great question. So, like I said, I kind of wasn't taking care of myself this whole first semester. And one night I went out, got really drunk, came back to my dorm and got super high. And pretty much my body just was put into, like my body like literally shut down. And I had a mental break. I was hallucinating. I was having like crazy delusions.
Do you remember this or no?
I do.
Okay.
I remember it. I remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
Which is honestly terrifying. I wish I didn't remember.
No, I can imagine.
Right?
Yeah.
But no, I do remember it. And so it was, for those listeners anybody who's experienced a panic attack, it was kind of like that, but times 9 million gazillion.
And for a prolonged period of time.
At 100% for about 3 or 4 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was pretty much a terrifying episode, like a mental break.
Yeah.
And I thought my life was over. I was panicking. I was having, again, hallucinations, delusions. I thought I was dying. I was screaming at my roommates to take me to the hospital. Just like utter terror, like absolute, like a terrifying episode. And I woke up the next morning and kind of was like, oh, that was weird. Like, what was that? Like, I'm like sober now. Like, that was a weird thing that happened to me last night. But I kind of was like, oh, I probably just like smoked laced weed or like something, whatever. Like, and then throughout the day, that day where I woke up, I could not get out of bed. Like I literally for a week straight, it was actually a little bit less than a week, I couldn't move. Like I literally could not move. And I was having really, really dark thoughts.
Suicidal thoughts.
Like really, really dark stuff and couldn't get out of bed. And so my roommate, Olivia Lauterbach, who you went to high school with, is she was my freshman year roommate. I'm still best friends with her. And she was like, oh my God, something's wrong with you. Like, what's wrong? Like she's like, I want to help you. Like, what can I do? Whatever. Yeah. And I couldn't even explain, I couldn't even explain my feelings, like how I was feeling. It was just so confusing and scary. Long story short, I had to call my mom and say, I can't get out of bed. I can't go to my classes. I can't take these finals. So my mom came down to Delaware and got a doctor, like helped me get doctor's notes to take my finals online. But it was just like my mom and I were taking my finals in a hotel room in Delaware. And I like barely remember anything from that week because I was just in utter terror. Like it was like this terrifying thing that happened to me. And then so Mike, for 4 years of college, I was pretty much experienced just debilitating mental health issues, anxiety, depression, all of it. So to answer your first question, when I went home for winter break, right after this episode happened to me, my mom was like, we have to go to a doctor. Like something's wrong with you. Like and she wasn't saying that as like she was like, I'm very concerned.
Of course.
I'm very concerned. I didn't know I was having a mental break. I had no idea.
Of course.
Like I was like, I think I have like a brain aneurysm. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me.
You almost probably felt like you were like living in a body that wasn't even yours. Like it's kind of controlling you for you.
Literally, what you just said was the way I used to describe it to people.
Like a prisoner in your own body.
Correct.
Yeah.
Literally, I would look in the mirror and I would look into the mirror and say, what am I? Who am I? What's wrong with me? Like I felt so disconnected and so detached from the world. It was terrifying. So anyways, went to my pediatrician. Not pediatrician, primary care doctor.
Primary care physician. Yeah, there you go.
And so he, I was like, what is wrong with me? I was convinced something was actually like physically wrong with me.
Right.
And my mom came in, with me and whatnot and was like, what is wrong with me? And my doctor was like, you're experiencing mental health issues. Like there's nothing wrong with you.
And have you ever considered this as a possibility prior to this?
Another great question. No. And so it's funny that leads into my next point. Like I was like, I don't have mental health issues. Like, what what are you talking about?
Like, I'm not a crazy person.
I'm not a crazy person. Like, no, like, right? Like,
yeah.
And so pretty much he convinced me, my doctor was like, you need to go see a therapist. And so that's when I was diagnosed with panic disorder, which I don't have anymore.
You do your list and then I'll do mine.
Okay. I have pretty much anxiety, depression, and OCD tendencies, which is like kind of a form of OCD.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other things, but pretty much anxiety and depression were my...
You know, it's same with me. When I was much younger, I had a clinical OCD diagnosis.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did. And then that has since subsided, but I'm currently clinically diagnosed with anxiety. I also was clinically diagnosed with depression when I was a kid. That has since subsided. But again, these things all sometimes blend together and create this, I think, dangerous mix. And it makes everyday activities very challenging. And to those that have never experienced something like this before, it can be hard to empathize because if you've never felt it, you don't know what it's really like. But I think both of us here can attest to the fact that it makes things hard, really hard. You sought out therapy. What was that like? Not only like what was therapy like, but what was it like to admit to yourself that like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to therapy?
It took me a really, really long time.
Yeah.
I'm talking like, I'm pretty sure I didn't tell anybody I was going to therapy, except my family obviously knew.
Of course.
But when I was at Delaware, I am best friends with them, the most amazing friends. And I was so ashamed about what I was going through that I think it probably took me a year to tell them that I was in therapy.
So you were going, but they didn't know.
Correct. And since I was at school, I was doing virtual. So it was like kind of easy to like hide it. But I was ashamed. I was really embarrassed about what I was going through. I was really scared.
Yeah.
And I thought that if people knew, even my best friends, I thought that I would lose people. I thought that they would think I was crazy.
It's funny. I had a very, very similar experience. And we'll talk a bit about this. But like for men too, like, look, there's this societal expectation that men are certain things. And for me, you know, I've been in therapy for 10 years.
You have?
Yeah, on and off. But honestly, I've probably been in therapy for 8 of the last 10 years. And I'm super comfortable with it now. But in the beginning, like nobody knew for probably 6, 7 years. None of my college friends knew. None of my high school friends knew. I was in therapy in high school. And I think it's wonderful, but it's not easy to admit to yourself that I need to go. But once you go, it can be one of the very few ways that you start to actually feel better.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So for you, when did you kind of start being more comfortable talking to people about therapy or your anxiety or whatnot?
I certainly wasn't comfortable in high school. And in high school, I certainly wanted to, you know, I had a lot of fun, but I wanted to be the cool guy, right? Fun, happy, go lucky, all that. And so I think, you know, walking through those halls, I was 80% me and 20% not me. And then in college, it was an idea sort of for me to reinvent myself. I wanted to go there and put all this stuff behind me. I very quickly learned that I still needed therapy, so I wasn't able to put that fully behind me, but I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't want to be the kid that was in therapy. So I didn't tell anybody. But then after college, you know, started working full time, life got really quiet. And so for me, like, it was almost a way for me to try and connect with people. Like, hey, you know, I don't see a lot of people during the week, but I'm Mike, and like, let me tell you all about me so we can become friends more quickly. And so I sort of got used to becoming more vulnerable because people actually appreciated it once I started sharing that part of me. And what I learned through that experience is more people go through this than you would realize.
I couldn't agree more. And it's so interesting and lovely to hear about your story and your point of view. Something I really relate to what you just said is, you know, the vulnerability in conversation. I found that the second I open up, like even, for example, somebody asked me, a stranger asked me, oh, how's your day? Like whatever. And I'm like, oh, I actually like had a really hard time this morning. I barely could get out of bed. My anxiety is really bad, whatever. I found that most of the time, the person on the other side of the conversation is like, oh my God, like, thank
me
you
too.
for being so real. Me too. Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So I really relate to what you say. And I think especially for a man, that's brave and powerful. You know, it shouldn't be like, so like the idea of like, oh my God, that's amazing, because everybody should just be who they are and feel who they are. But it's hard.
Of course. And there are expectations for men. And like,
of course,
look, are you kidding me? I want to go out in the world and be a strong man and be, you know, righteous and strive to be like hard like a rock. But that's just not how I am all the time. Sometimes, sure. But I have moments where it's very, very hard. And for a long time, I was ashamed to say that, but it's been so empowering to, you know, open up this show and start to tell the world like who I really am. One thing I would be curious about is there is so much more to hear for you than the clothes. By the way, I just got a sweatshirt. It's a tremendous sweatshirt. I love it.
It looks fabulous.
Thank you. Can you talk about how your own struggles started to lead into the idea to start this brand?
Of course. Absolutely. So that's definitely a really big part of my life. So, you know, as I kind of shared a little bit, have struggled mentally for a very long time. So when I was a senior at Delaware, May of 2020, COVID hit, or March of 2020, COVID hit, but I was graduating in May of 2020. So the end of my senior year, I was quarantined in a house with all my best friends, which was, looking back, actually a really amazing thing. But
Yeah.
it was really weird. And for somebody who struggles with mental health, the idea of being isolated was a nightmare. And so I kind of turned to creativity to kind of keep me busy. So I started tie-dyeing clothes. I started bleaching. Like, I, again, lived in a house with all my best friends. So I would like go in their closets and like make little like fashion projects, and was just kind of to keep my thoughts, you know, sane.
I feel like everybody during COVID had those hobbies,
Literally.
right? That they refined. Like I learned how to skateboard. I never skateboarded. I learned how to kick field goals on a football field, right? It's just like, how can we fill our days?
Can we possibly fill our days? That's exactly what it was. And so, and again, I know everybody struggled during COVID, and it was not easy for anybody. But again, with, you know, somebody who struggles tremendously with mental health, the idea of waking up and having nothing on the calendar, nightmare.
Like, it's an invitation to be alone with your thoughts, which is actually terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So I turned to this creative outlet. It got me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
It got me out of the bed. I kept chasing it. And kind of very shortly, you know, I'd graduated and I was home in Fairfield again. And I kind of started selling some of the stuff that I was doing on Instagram.
Okay.
Like some of my fashion pieces on Instagram, and for extra money, and also just like for something to do. And it quickly, you know, turned into like, I created a website and people were buying my stuff. And I was like, wait, this is like actually so cool. And
did it have a brand name at that point or no?
So yes, it did. So I named my brand, I registered my business as a sole proprietorship. And again, when I, like, this was a very much a hobby. Like it was like, I was working, I accepted the first job I got right out of college. I was a tech recruiter out of Stanford, was all virtual because of COVID.
Okay.
But this was a hobby. So I registered my business as a sole proprietorship. I named it Haney because my last name's Haney.
Oh, I remember that. I remember seeing those posts. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And was just like kind of fell in love with selling stuff online and interacting with people, of course, all virtually.
Right.
But again, it was something that it got me out of bed. It really got me out of bed. And so just kind of fell in love with this creative, you know, side of myself that I didn't really know existed. And I also really realized that it was helping with my mental health.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, this hobby was going on for about a year, and I was still working this corporate job. I sat down Emma, my best friend from freshman year of high school, and I said, like, I really want to do something that's like creative. I don't feel fulfilled in my corporate job. You know, I want to make a difference. Like, I kind of had this like weird sense of like, maybe I could be something. And that was weird for me to feel. Like, I didn't feel that way ever, really. And I kind of had this like, maybe I could do something with my life. Maybe I could do something. Like, maybe I can like heal. Maybe I could help others heal. I was like having these like very hopeful thoughts. And Emma was like, you got to do this. You have to start your own thing.
Was it foreign to you to feel those hopeful thoughts?
Absolutely foreign.
Really?
Absolutely foreign.
If I can imagine how you might even in the beginning question, like, wait a second, what's going on here? I'm not used to feeling like this.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it was scary, but it was also exciting.
Yeah.
And then I quit my corporate job. I didn't tell anybody I was quitting. I pretty much quit the next day. Had a very good relationship with my boss. And I told her that, you know, I wanted to start my own thing and wanted to, you know, follow this like passion of creativity. And she kind of helped me through it, which is really a unique thing.
So you were honest with her that, look, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I was blatantly honest with her.
No way.
And she is somebody who I will always look up to and appreciate, because she was like, life is so short. You go do it. You always
That's
have
incredible.
a place here. So an amazing woman. Goosebumps.
And is that the last day you've worked in corporate America since?
Yeah.
Wow.
And to come around to the question, I was sitting down with Emma, like I said, my best friend, and I was like, you know, I really want to influence people. I find myself healing through this. Maybe I can heal others. And something Emma and I have always said to one another, and Emma struggles with mental health too. She's open about it. And I'm not like telling her story I'm not going to tell her story for her, but like she struggles with mental health. And something we've always said to each other throughout the years is, here for you. Like, I'm here even if you don't want to talk, even if you don't know what you're going through, I'm just here. And so Emma was one of the only people throughout those years of dark struggles that I would talk to.
But it's so beautiful because Here For You was literally born out of some of the darkest periods of your life.
That absolutely.
Yeah.
And so then we decided to put Here For You on a hoodie.
Yeah.
And I remember I probably had maybe 200 followers on Instagram at the time. And I posted the picture of a Here For You hoodie and said, you know, this is about like being there for one another, mental health awareness. And it happened to be September, which was Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
Wow.
And so I was going to donate a portion of sales to suicide prevention. And kind of this was crazy for me to post because I had never posted about mental health. I had, you know, never talked about it really.
What are the emotions there in that post? Is it like nervous? Is it empowering? How did that feel?
Very, very, very nervous. When I first posted it, I was terrified.
Yeah.
But then to follow up on that, within 20 minutes, I think most people that followed me responded and said, oh my God, I've been through mental health. Thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. Like I lost my dad, I lost my brother, I lost my whatever. Like, and I had this realization, Mike, literally that day, I was like, holy shit, I'm not alone.
You had never felt that sense of community until that day?
Never even anything close.
Really?
And so then that was 3 years ago-ish. And since that day, I've just put I have literally dedicated my everyday life and passion and everything to creating a community around this mission where nobody is alone. Like no matter what you're going through, change is real, hope is real, and people care.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody who cares, and there's always something that can help you. I don't even know if I answered. I forget the question that you asked.
Well, let me ask you this. In those early days, right? I'm sure it's easy to look back with rose-colored glasses, right? And like this has all been for a reason, but put on your founder hat for a second.
Yeah.
In those very early days where you're like standing up a business and you're like, you know, you're a CEO, you're a founder, like were there ever struggles early on where you questioned if what you were doing was worth it from a business side?
Absolutely. And to be completely transparent, I struggle to this day.
Yeah.
And I always will with business decisions and with anxieties and stress and about everything. And I think that what you just said, you know, like, oh, is this worth it? Or is whatnot? I've never questioned, and this is real, I've never questioned, is it worth it? But that doesn't mean that there's not anxiety surrounding it. Like I struggle a lot with anxiety around money.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh my goodness. And, you know, just like, right, like it's like I've never done any of this. I've never like I have no idea. Like, you know, dealing with a lot of money is scary.
Yeah.
And putting yourself out there, you know, putting my face forward and putting a lot of money down for rent. We just opened our first brick and mortar location.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mike visited it for the first time today.
Yeah, I got this shirt for those looking. HereForYouClothing.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
But no, absolutely. And I think that it's so like for anybody listening who's interested in starting their own thing, it's so normal to feel scared and worried and whatnot and all these anxieties. And is this going to work out or whatnot? But I think if you really, I mean, I believe in this wholeheartedly. If you really believe in something, you're going to just make it happen.
Yeah.
And it will happen. And, you know, it's scary when there's no money in the bank account. They're scary when, you know, but it's just like you do it and you figure it out. And I believe like passion is really powerful.
One thing that helps and has helped me is, since just starting this little podcast that we're on, is waking up every day feeling like I'm a man on a mission. Like there's something greater than me that I'm moving through is very powerful. Did this mission of Here For You help to alleviate some of the mental health challenges that you were facing?
Absolutely.
Cool.
I think that what you just said really, really resonated. Every day you wake up, no matter even if you had a shitty day yesterday or whatever, like, right? No, even if you're dealing with shit, like, you know that you believe in a mission, right? Like you believe in what you're doing and you believe in the growth of it. And I think that has, those feelings are exactly what I feel every day. And that has tremendously helped me with my mental health issues, is having something to live for.
That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Not to say that I live for so many other things, but this is something that I created that I am living for. And oh, absolutely.
And I think it's a force for good in the world. I mean, it's more than a business. Like, this is much more than that. And I also understand that the local community has really rallied around this. Can you talk a bit about what community means to you and how our local community has come together to help make this even more real?
Honestly, every day I'm blown away by it. And I think that it's really interesting, actually, because a couple, minutes ago, we were kind of talking about it's hard to grow up here. It is. Like you said, keeping up with the Joneses. Like, it's like everybody is pretty and rich. And I'm being very like general.
Everybody's
right now,
pretty rich. You got a big house. They got all the cars. I totally, that's the way it is.
Right. So I think, to be completely honest, when I started this business, I was really afraid that people are going to think this is weird or not for Fairfield County, right? Or whatnot, because it's like, you're Fairfield County, you hide all your problems.
Yeah.
Or you bury them.
Right.
And
it's almost like an act of rebellion against that culture in a weird way.
That's kind of what it seemed like.
I never thought about that till just now.
I'm sure there are people who think it's weird, and I'm sure some people think that. But overall, the community here has literally been so supportive and so, I can't even put it to words. And I really mean that. It has also showed me that everybody is going through something or has gone through something or will go through something.
Yeah.
And people show up for something that they give a shit about.
That's so true.
And I think that what I'm doing, what we were kind of talking about before, what I'm doing and what you're doing, a lot of people want to do it or want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But they haven't found that voice yet. And so when somebody has that voice who's nearby, they're going to be like, oh my God, I want to go and support that because I believe in that.
And I think, growing up, I had a similar experience to you where I don't think I necessarily felt seen and heard by a lot of people in my life. And I didn't really know what was going on in my head. I thought this was just like some burden that I had to bear. And I bore that burden for a long time without talking about it. But I do wish that I spoke up earlier about what I was going through to my friends and even to some degree to my family. Like, they knew, but they didn't really know. And it's really important now when I have kids one day to say, like, hey, say what's on your mind. Is something, is there a problem? Because these are things we can talk about openly. And the mission of Here For You is actively contributing to that discussion. So from me to you, thank you.
It means a lot that you said that. And I think that something that's, emotional for me is kind of a point that you hit, when you have kids, it's the idea that what you just said, right? Like, we can talk about this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that you can't talk to me about. There's nothing that you can't get through. And why I say that's emotional is because when I was a child, my family is literally they are the most amazing people in the whole world. They've always supported me. They have I'm talking about my parents specifically, and my twin brother is unbelievable. But my parents didn't know what mental health challenges were. Right? Like, it's, when I was feeling this way, they were like, what is wrong with you? Like, I don't understand. And that was really scary to me because they didn't, and it's not their fault at all. They literally did not know how to talk about it. So I think that when I have kids too, I'm like, I feel so grateful that I've gone through this because I feel like I can be the person who can, be there for my kids and open the conversation up at an early age. And I think that if I knew it was okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And to be able to talk about this stuff when I was growing up, I would have lived a very different life when I was young.
Well, that's
and
part
I
of
don't
it.
regret it, but you know what I'm saying?
Of course. And that's part of the only way to start fixing the issue is to admit that the issue is real.
Yes.
And I didn't want to admit the issue for a long time because I thought it was weak. But like, the strongest thing I ever did is like, hey, hand up, guys. I need some help. And honestly, to your earlier point, like, if your parents had never grown up around this or never knew what this was, like, it's not their fault, but it's real.
Right.
And I could see how, in your mind, you look up to your parents, like the sun rises and sets in their eyes. But if they're not recognizing what you're going through, it can almost make you feel like you're not valid to feel what you're feeling.
Totally. I think about people who, it's not my parents' fault at all. And now they're so aware about mental health issues. It's like they know exactly, how to support me and whatnot. And they are truly the most amazing people ever. But that's why I also believe in educating people too and talking so openly about this topic, because there are tons of people who have no idea. Even still.
Yeah.
And that's, again, like, that's not necessarily their fault. It's just, it is a stigmatized topic. And to destigmatize is very hard, but it's very important. And I believe it's very real too.
And it's also one of those things where it's like, how do you work it into the conversation? Like, You know, it's like there's an art and a science to it. Like, I don't want to go up to somebody and say, hi, my name is Mike and I have severe anxiety and struggle with my mental health. But like, I also do want to say that to people because that's such a big part of me. So there's a lot of nuance to this, but like, I do know that we're having these conversations more, but we need to have them even more.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, so I've seen on Instagram these nights of hope that you guys put on, and I think they're so beautiful. Can you talk a bit about what those are and what they have taught you about collective challenges that we all face?
Oh, yeah. I could talk about these nights so much. So pretty much I'll give you a couple, without rambling too much because I'll get like super into it. But when I opened this storefront November 1st, 2023, I knew that it was going to be way more than a store. My whole thing is I've seen really, really, really dark days.
Yeah.
But I've also seen the light. Like I have found the light. And does that mean I'll never struggle again? Of course, I struggle every day. Everybody does. But I have found the light. I found hope and I found change. And hope is real. Like hope is the most powerful emotion ever, I believe. And so, when we opened the store, it's a really big space. You went in today. It's a really big space, high ceilings, natural light. It's a safe space. I felt safe.
I did too, actually. It's funny you say that. Like, it's a very calm space. It feels like time stands still in there. And I don't just say that, but I don't know if that's the vibe you were going for, but like, if you curated it to feel that way, you definitely succeeded.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
And we got really lucky. The owner before us had a really beautiful boutique and kind of set up all the lights and the displays and whatnot. So we were tremendously lucky with how the space was when we walked into it.
Cool.
But we also every day we fix things and move things around because we want it to feel safe. We want it to feel like time stands still and you just can take a breath.
That's what it felt like. Right? Actually, when I went in there and I was browsing, I was like, okay, this is nice.
I'm okay. Right?
Yes.
Like,
like for a second, I'm like, I'm okay.
I'm okay for a second.
I'm looking for a sweatshirt and it's all right.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we want. And I think that, people there's a lot of people who don't feel that way during the day. And so to create a space that kind of going to my point where it is more than a store, it's a safe space, Nights of Hope. So when we signed the lease for the space, I knew that I wanted to host events that were about mental health. Like I knew that I wanted to host events about mental health, but I didn't know exactly how that could happen or what that would look like exactly. And so, but I knew that I wanted to share my story. I knew that I wanted to share my hope and like that hope is real.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of was just like, all right, I'm going to have a night of hope. Like I'm going to create a night of hope. And so I was like, I know I'm going to share my story about how I felt really dark and what helped me, right? Yeah. Like how sobriety helped me, how Here For You helped me, how all of it, everything has helped me. And I'll talk really openly about it, hoping to inspire other people. Yeah. I asked a couple other people if they would be willing to share their stories about darkness and how they found the light. Because I know since I've been doing this for 3 years, I've met a lot of people who suffer. And
I was going to ask about that, but I can imagine you have met so many people that say, hey, I'm also going through this.
I'm going through this. And what I find so amazing about people is a lot of people want to share. Yeah. They just don't have the platform to, or they don't feel like they have a space to.
Yes.
And so I wanted to create that. And so I shared my story along with, I think the first night was 4 or 5 panelists who shared their story about how they found the light. And I fit the store. It's a big space. We move the tables aside that are in the middle of the store, and we can comfortably fit about 75 people with chairs in the store. And we filled those chairs
on the first one,
audience members on the first night.
Wow.
So after our panelists shared, I opened it up to the audience and I said, does anybody want to share? Does anybody want to come up and share? And, we had a microphone and whatnot. I thought nobody I would have never got right? Like when I was like, I would have never gone.
Oh my God. It's funny. Like I'm in front of the cameras right now and like people will see this, but it doesn't feel like people are seeing me. So I kind of feel like private.
Right.
But if I was in that room, I for sure would not have stood up. No, I just know that.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, the night started at 6:30, I think. And all of a sudden I look at my watch and it's 11 o'clock.
Oh my gosh.
Because so many people from the audience stood up and shared their story.
Yeah.
16-year-old girls, 70-year-old men. And again, I keep all this information private. Of course, I'm not going to record them talking.
Of course.
Literally, like, I would never do that, but I wish I freaking could, because it is that powerful, you know. And again, I've had somebody who looks like you, somebody who was like the party, really amazing, everybody loved, like, kid in high school, right? Not to like put that on you, but like, you know what I'm saying?
But that's what I was going for, so thanks.
No, I mean, it was. And, you know, I had somebody just like you stand up and say, I feel like I have to put on this face and I really struggle. And it just, like, so many people, it really was just, it's a healing, a whole night of healing. And so we've had 4, and every time it just gets deeper and better.
Oh my gosh.
And it's, you know, it really is just proof that you are never alone and that people care and support you.
I think honestly that's what the most powerful thing is for me, the takeaway of your entire brand is when people see that brand, they know they're not alone. And dealing with mental health can feel very lonely, you know? You spend a lot of time in your own head. You talk to yourself a lot of negative self-talk, self-doubt, a lot of questioning what tomorrow looks like and if you even want to see it. And that is, I think, beyond the awesome sweatshirt I'm wearing and beyond the beautiful store, like, people walk around our town and now walk around this country with shirts that make people feel seen. Can you talk a little bit about moments as a CEO that are stressful? I mean, you deal with anxiety. You know, I don't make any money off this podcast, and I stress out about this all the time, all day. I can imagine you have a full-fledged business. Can you talk about what it's like to be somebody that struggles with what you struggle with, but also, you know, have things like payroll to meet?
I think that's actually a lot of reason why people don't start things.
Because they're afraid of the stress they know will hit them?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, this is just my personal opinion. And what I've seen is a lot of people, for example, I'll have customers come in and say, I really want to do something, you know, I want to be a therapist or I want to do something with mental health, but I struggle myself. So I'm afraid that I can't do it, or I'm afraid that my anxiety will get in the way, or, you know, whatever. Right. And I think that, of course, like, there's some days where my OCD is really bad, and, you know, or my depression is really bad, or my anxiety is really bad, and it affects me.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something that affects me no matter what I'm doing, even though this is my life work. I believe this is my life work and my passion. It still affects me. And I think that just normalizing that, like, I'm a human, and no matter what I'm doing, like, my anxiety isn't just going to flutter away because I'm like doing you know, it's like, it's something that's a part of me and I'm working through it. But it's like, for example, like payroll, like, just using that as an example, because you brought that up. Like, I have a lot of anxiety around money.
Yeah.
I just do. That's something that, like, I just have it. Like, it just, money stresses me out. I think a lot of people have.
I was just going to say that.
People have money
anxiety. I do. I think everybody does. Yeah.
So, for example, you know, somebody who, like, you know, having a lot of anxiety around money when payroll comes up and I'm short, or I'm like, oh my God, if I don't do well at this event, I don't know if I'm going to make payroll.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to make it, but it's going to be a close call. Like, that's a horrible feeling. That's a scary feeling.
For even for folks that don't deal with anxiety.
100%. I
Right.
was literally just going to say that.
Yeah.
And so I think that, again, it goes back to, I just believe in this so much that it's growing pains and stress that I want to work through.
Yeah.
And no matter what the hell you do, no matter what your profession is or what you do, like, you're going to have stress about things and you're going to have anxiety about things, especially if you already, like, experience anxiety or depression. But I choose to let myself feel those things and work through it.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh my God, I'm like so anxious right now, I'm just going to fuck it, close the business. Like, I'm not going to make payroll.
But you almost, like, the business is now almost forcing you to face some of that anxiety, I can imagine, which in a way is kind of a blessing back to you.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't just, you know, people are relying on you now.
Yeah.
Right? Which is probably scary, but it's also awesome.
What you just said.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, but it's also literally so exciting and just amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also something that I really do like to normalize as well when I talk, is it's really possible to feel really scared about something, but also really excited about it at the same time.
Love that.
You know, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's possible.
I'm living that.
I'm living that.
And you are too. I have a few founder friends in my network, and I talk to them often because I aspire to be a founder of something. You know, maybe this will be more real than it is even today. But one thing I thought is, like, once you decide what you want to do, or you become a founder, or you start that LLC, like, all your anxiety goes away. Like, boom, you founded the thing. You did what you always wanted. In fact, I think that's only the start of a lot of stresses. And for somebody that deals with mental health, that can be scary. But on the other side of those stressful scenarios is so much growth and so much fulfillment. I mean, I can imagine that you feel so unbelievably fulfilled working on this mission. And I mean, contrast that with what you were doing before. The amount of fulfillment you felt at your corporate job was probably none.
Yeah.
Negative?
Close to zero, negative.
Yeah.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So I actually have a question for you, if you don't mind, because this just sparked something. So I think about now, like my life has changed so much in the past 3 years with his business.
I bet.
And my whole thing, right, is like, I never thought that I would do something great. Like, I never thought that, like, when I, like, you know, I kind of shared before, like, I never thought I would do something great. I never thought that I would be able to create something that's meaningful or powerful or whatever. And I feel so fulfilled with what I'm doing now and so proud of myself. And like, it's surreal.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's hard. Like, my brain also works in a way where it's like, I'm going to feel more fulfilled when I make $1 million, or I'm going to feel more fulfilled when I hit this mark, or when I get this influencer to wear my hoodie. Like, I've found, and I want to hear your opinion, is I've now learned to train my brain as like, I'm fulfilled when I sell one hoodie a day. Like, I've trained my brain to like think of it as like, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And of course you got to make whatever, like, it, you know, but whatever happens, it's fulfilling to me. And like I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, well, once I quit my job, or once I sign the LLC papers, or once whatever, I'm going to feel fulfilled.
Like things will just fall into place.
Things will just fall into place. And exactly. And I'm wondering, like, how do you feel that way? Like, do you struggle with that? Or like, because I did for a while and I still do. It's like, oh, I'm going to feel more fulfilled or better when this happens. And that just, it's, if you don't feel like it within you,
right.
It's like this, it's almost like you're never going to be fulfilled if you don't.
Totally.
Right? Like, do you resonate with that?
Here's what I would say, and here's like a really profound realization I've had. So in the 5 years post-grad, what I was doing was chasing a check. And every year, all that I thought was, once I get that next raise, once I get the next promotion, I'm finally going to feel fulfilled. Like, this is finally going to be it. You finally made it. And then every time I'd get it, and I would be happy for a week, and then back to work. And as the years went on, right in the beginning, it was exciting. I work in finance, so you wear a suit, you're in the boardroom. Like, the allure of it is cool, at least for me, for like 6 months. And then all of a sudden, the only thing exciting about my job was the fact that in December, I'm probably going to get a raise. That was what I was chasing. And in a way, it almost felt like Sisyphus. Like, you're always pushing that boulder up the hill. The next time you get that raise, you're happy about it until you want to get that next raise. Now, it has been such a profound difference when I think about Forever Forward. And the reason is because I realize that what I'm after here in my life, generally, of course, I need some degree of money to just live. But what I'm really after is fulfillment. I'm after presence. I'm after agency. I'm not necessarily after a check. I thought I was, because that's kind of the only option I had at work, because I was not going to find values alignment in my corporate career. But now that I've identified that, hey, there's something else out here that I could actually do, and maybe even one day make money from, it has nothing to do with the money and everything to do about everything else. And that, to me, has changed my life. Like, I literally can never go back to thinking the way I used to think. And in some ways it's daunting, because I feel like I feel so good about Forever Forward and so mission driven that I've almost like shackled myself to this goal. Like, hey man, you're in it. Like, this is your mission, but I'm proud to have shackled myself to it. And I might not make $1 for this for years, but even if I don't, like this, the presence I feel when I have conversations like this is worth more than any check I could ever chase. And look, like, would I love for this to make me money? Of course. And maybe one day it will, but that's not what I'm after. I thought that's what I was after in my life, but I think that's table stakes.
Absolutely. And I think that, like you said, it's something that money, not to sound cheesy, but it's like money can't buy that. Like, right? Like, there's no amount of money that would feel the same way that
there truly is not.
I feel about starting this and the mission behind it. Same with you.
Yeah.
And I think that people get caught up with the money a lot. Like, they're like, oh, well, I could do this, but it's going to make me no money or whatnot. But it's like,
yeah.
When in reality, and again, this is like, I really think that you can do it all. Like, if you really love something and believe in it, you will make it work.
And I think the irony of it all is, like, those things that you're passionate about that might not make you a lot of money at first, I think those people that become millionaires and billionaires are the ones that would tell you, like, no, go do that thing. Because if there's anything that's going to make you financially successful, it's actually that. It's not actually the corporate, it's actually the other stuff. Because the energy you put into the world will come back unto you.
Absolutely. And something recently I've been experiencing is, the month of May, it was Mental Health Awareness Month, which was,
of course,
really, really very important for us. Every month is Mental Health Awareness Month for us and for me. But like, you know, it was something that was, I had these really big expectations. We're going to sell all this stuff. We're going to do whatever, all these things. And it just happened that it was one of our slower months. Again, not anything that was, you know, knock on wood. We still like did very well, but it was almost like I had this expectation in my head that, oh, it's going to be that I'm going to hit again. I'm going to hit this number. I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And you know, it takes practice, I think, to take a step back and be like I'm looking at 1 month out of this whole thing, you know, and it's like, that's a beautiful part of being like every part of it. Like, I believe living is feeling the bad, the good, and everything in between.
I'll do you one better. I think life is suffering. And that sounds cynical, but I don't. I actually think there's beauty in it. I really do. In fact, the times where I feel, I don't know if happy is the right word, but the times where I feel most proud are the times where I go through something hard, come out on the other end and look back and say, huh, okay.
Wow.
Throw another one at me. Right? Let me try that again. So it's the good and the bad. Yeah, it's the good and the bad. And what I love about Here For You is like the vibe of Here For You is positive. Like Here For You is not a sad brand. It's actually a very happy brand. But within that brand is also the understanding that like there is happy and there is some sad. And all of it is okay. And that's part of me that I've been trying to reckon with a little bit lately is like, I want to be happy all the time. I'm trying so hard to be. And I kind of get pissed at myself when I'm sad. Like, you should be more grateful. You should be so happy to live the life you're living. But I'm working through it, right? I'm blessed to have the opportunities that I have. And to even like with this podcast, it's not growing as fast as I want, right? It's like, oh my God, like, why am I not massive? Why am I not this? Why am I not that? And then I have to recenter and be like, man, what a blessing it is to have taken this leap of faith, to be sitting here with you, to be able to afford the cameras. Like, there are little things that I could be grateful for that I'm still working to find.
Gratitude in every day, you know, even the little things, I think is something that is very hard to do sometimes, especially on those hard days. But it really is something that shapes you, and it teaches you that no matter how shitty it is, right? Or whatever, like there's always something that you can be grateful for.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is hope too.
I do too.
You know, it's and those little bits of gratitude and those little bits of beacons of hope, they add up. They add up.
They do. So maybe, Ellie, if we could close on a couple questions. I think the first one is this. I know a lot of people that are scared to take a leap of faith, whether it's going to see therapy or start a business. What advice would you give to anybody that's kind of on the fence? Should they do something? Should they not? What would you say to them as somebody who's dealt with this in a whole bunch of different arenas?
You know, I think that my first thing is it's okay to be scared. You know, that's like let yourself feel scared. That's a human emotion. It's okay because change is scary. A leap of faith is scary. Whether, like you said, whether or not it's booking your first appointment at therapy or starting a business, taking out a loan,
or going to the gym for the first time.
Going to the gym for the first time, getting a dating app for the first time, anything.
Totally.
Literally anything it's okay to feel scared. And you're not alone. Right? Like,
yes.
That's like, you are not alone. That's my number one thing that I always say, and I really believe is like, no matter what you're going through, you are never alone.
What I love about what you just said too is I've asked this to a few guests, and the knee-jerk response from almost everybody is,
do it.
Do it. Just do it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Instead, it's like, hey, first of all, it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, right? Like, acknowledge that and then do it. But think about it first. Just like, that's okay.
That's okay. And I literally knew you were going to say that.
Did you?
And I knew that you were going to say other people had said that because I knew you were going to say that. And I thought about that question for a second and I was like, you know what? You'll know when the time is right. But it's also okay to feel like, for example, if you're making a decision, like it's okay to not feel 100% about something. Like,
right.
I mean, at least I experience this. Like, it's like, you'll know when your person, like, you know, when you meet your person, or you'll know when like you should take the leap of faith. And sometimes you actually just don't fucking know. And like, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, but it's like, I do believe in gut feelings though. I absolutely do.
Okay.
I absolutely do. I believe in gut feelings, but I also believe it's okay to feel confused sometimes and whatever, right? Like, but I do have to say, with any leap of faith, if you have a passion, a gut feeling behind it, even if you crash and burn and literally end up sleeping on your friend's couch, you will never, ever, ever, ever regret that leap of faith.
You will have learned so much.
And I mean, again, not to like wherever, but like my corporate job, right? I had a really hard time in my corporate job. I was very depressed. It was all these things, right? Like, but it was a leap of faith in a way because I was like, I'm jumping into this new company, right? Like it's whatever. I learned so much about myself from that year of suffering. Again, it wasn't all suffering, but I will never, ever regret that time. And I just believe like you cannot make a wrong decision
I
about
love that.
your life. Like you just can't, because everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. And truly, truly everything has a reason behind it. And I think it's really important to lean into that and just let yourself feel how you feel.
Yeah. I had a hard time with that for a while. Like,
Yeah.
why am I feeling this way? But I'm trying to change the mind frame. Like, however I feel is how I feel. And that's fine.
For men, why do you think that it's so much? And again, I'm generalizing right now.
Sure.
But why do you think it's so much harder to talk about mental health and things that men are going through? At the end of the day, right? Like the suicide rate for men is 4 times higher than women. Like
Is it really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Oh yeah. And it's the only reason why I know is because I'm like looking at all these facts all the time.
Of course.
Stuff with work, but it's really difficult, and something that like June is men's mental health month. And so, I've been looking, into some research and whatnot and just facts and what's going on. And I'm like, it's hard because I'm not a man, right? Like it's hard, but it's, I found like even in the guys I've dated, like and my dad and, my brother, like it's hard for them to talk about mental health. Like, why do you think that is?
Honestly, I think there are a lot of traditional views of what a man should and should not be. And I think in some ways, some of those walls are being broken down. And in other ways, some of those walls are still cemented. And look, I still struggle with that because I do want to be a traditionally masculine man, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to be a provider and I want to be strong and I want to bear the burden of my family and I want to bear the burdens of the world on my shoulders. But unfortunately, implicit in that is this idea that men should not struggle. And if they do, they should not say anything about it because that would be emasculating for men to say that. And so honestly, I think what the bravest thing is to say, hey guys, like I'm actually not doing too hot right now. But I don't necessarily think society is at a point where that is widely accepted. And I don't know if we're going to be there for a long time. And I don't know if we're going to be there ever. I hope we are. But it's important that we have these conversations because for as much as women struggle, men do too.
You're absolutely right. And I think that, I really believe that the conversation is changing, which is a beautiful thing. But there's also, like you said, there's walls that are cemented.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
It's heartbreaking. My dad lost his brother to suicide, actually. So my uncle passed from suicide, and I never met him, unfortunately. But I think about him all the time. So he passed when my dad was young, but it's something that, again, I think about a lot. And I think that, and not just even my Uncle Peter, but just, hearing about men suffering and women and anybody, it's like, I wish that, they would know that they're not alone, right? Like, it's just like, it's so emotional and so hard because, you and me, like we've both been in really dark places, and hearing that somebody thought that the only way out was to not feel anything at all it's hard to sit with.
Yeah. And I also think that some people think it's stronger to not say anything.
That's right.
Right. I think that's also what a lot of people think. And
absolutely.
I've been there. I totally get it.
Yep.
That's just not a way to live, man. It's
not a way to live.
Just tortures you, honestly. And to anybody out there that might be feeling like they are fine without any help, I would say maybe you are, but consider saying something about it, right? Find somebody you trust and be like, hey. And if you completely don't resonate with any of this and you don't struggle at all, good for you. You're in the minority. That's great.
And that's wonderful. And also, to your point, Mike, like, I love that you actually brought that up, because person who's watching and is having no struggles, that's amazing. I hope you never do.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Be there for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like, so the idea that now you may hopefully have from our conversation a little bit more of an insight of what somebody might be feeling like when they're going through a hard time, and something like, just as simple as saying, here for you, or what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Right? It means the world. I think for men, just something that I do want to say is I personally think that what you said is very true. It's so brave to actually talk about these things, and it's actually honestly is so attractive. I just think that it is the opposite of weak.
I think that maybe this is a hot take. I think emotionally mature people find vulnerability very attractive.
Absolutely.
But I think emotionally immature people find it to be an ick.
Correct. That's, oh my God, that is so true.
Yeah.
And I just started seeing this new guy, and we're not dating or anything, but I started seeing him. And something that I loved about him the first time that I met him was how openly he talked about mental health. I was literally like, I want to see, again, that wasn't the only reason, but I was like, I want to see him again because I love that he talked about this time where he was experiencing depression. Or like it was like, I was like, oh my God, you have so much depth to you.
That's the thing.
Right? It was so attractive to me.
Yeah.
Again, not attractive that he suffers, but like attractive that he spoke so openly about it. I'm like, you're a human and you're real.
And there's something attractive about like people that have gone through things and come out on the other side. Like it's almost like you're a warrior. Like,
yes.
Look, traditionally masculine men are warriors and fighters. And like, just because maybe you're not in a samurai suit with a sword doesn't mean that what you're going through is invalid. You can still be a warrior in other ways. And I think that, you know, being able to talk about that openly should be attractive because those people are usually more emotionally nuanced. And those are the people that you want to spend your time with, not the ones that would, you know, make fun of you for saying, hey, I'm having a hard time.
Oh, absolutely. And I actually love what you said about war. I love that warrior. You know, I love that word. And I think that also, you know, you can be a warrior and still struggle, right? Like,
great point.
You know, like, and I love that word choice that you used. You're like, I consider myself a warrior. I consider you a warrior because we're here right now, right? And it's regardless of all the dark, regardless of everything, like we're here.
Right.
And you're not here telling me that your life is perfect and that your anxiety is cured.
No.
Right? Like you are fighting through those days and, you know, every day looking for that hope and looking for that light. And I think that's something that is a real warrior too.
I think it's like, for me, it's like, I know I'm not perfect and I still struggle daily, but I like who I'm becoming. Figuring out who you really are, understanding that you're not perfect, but also understanding that you have so much potential and light to bring to the world is a powerful realization. And to anybody that's listening that maybe hasn't thought that way, consider it because you're very special.
Your life is worth it. Everybody brings a unique light to this world. And like you said, you don't have to be moving mountains.
Yes.
Show that light. You can if you want. Please go like and do that. You know, if you have big dreams, if you have but something as simple as, right, like writing a stranger a card, right? Like, you know, like it's like that is so beautiful and your light is showing through something as small as that.
Yes. And even if your mountain to move is making your bed.
Right.
Like make that shit and do it well. And then maybe that's all you can do for the day. And that's fine. But you got to at least try to do something. And if you can do it well. Like find little victories.
Yep.
I've been there.
Little victories.
I'm still sometimes there. But I think sometimes people get caught up in how daunting it feels to pull yourself out of these ruts, when in reality, little victories will make you feel really good. And they add up and they can very quickly reset what you consider to be a failure. So maybe we can end on one very positive note. So your business has done so well, to my understanding.
Thank you.
Because I see it everywhere. It's funny. I was in Boston like 3 weeks ago and I saw a girl wearing a Here For You sweatshirt. I swear, which was so cool. So it's not just like here. I don't know if it's global yet, but it's certainly domestic here in the United States. What's next for Here For You? What is on the horizon?
Yes. There is a lot on the horizon. I'll give you like something that's coming up really shortly and then I'll kind of give a bigger picture if that's cool.
Yeah.
So something that is coming up really soon is we have 2 brand new summer collections coming.
Nice.
Which I'm really excited about. So the end of June, we'll be dropping summer collection number 1. A lot of just brand new pieces to our collection. A lot of t-shirts, some new hats, some new boxer shorts that are really, really cute, and a lot of just really exciting clothing pieces. And then our second drop is going to be early mid-July and kind of just brand new pieces as well. Just really uplifting, happy designs that are just really like kind of a feel-good summer, which I'm just really looking forward to. I have a lot to say about Here For You if you can't tell, but something that I'm really looking forward to and what's next for us is keeping the mission strong, but expanding across the US. And I think that means that looks like a lot of different things, but I think that my whole mission is to make nobody feels alone.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but this past year we traveled to a bunch of different college campuses.
I did see that.
We, we were down in South Carolina, USC, Clemson, Furman, and that was something that I was kind of like, holy crap. Like if I had seen this message in college, it would have changed my life. And so I think that I am just incredibly passionate about just getting this message to as many different places as possible. And so we're working on getting licensed to work with hundreds and hundreds of colleges across the US. So this next year is going to look really exciting in that aspect, where we're going to be able to do like Here For You, Fairfield U, Here For You, Clemson, and
Like official branded gear?
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
Really exciting.
And it's bringing a message probably to one of the populations that needs it the most.
So that was exactly my second point. And I think that, somebody who suffered tremendously in college, it's near and dear to my heart. We don't have any of these, I don't have a specific plan about, like I have a plan, but not like, I don't know what we're doing first. I don't know. We're going to start with Fairfield U.
Yes.
But just really embedding our message in, using college as an example in their bookstores, where throughout the year, these kids go in and they see our message, right? Like on the products, like that's something that it's not just like we come and do one presentation. We are there to stay.
Yeah.
And so just expanding, nationally and globally, and just traveling around. I love traveling. I love speaking about my story. I actually want to do our Nights of Hope, expanding those as well. But I want to reach more people, and I am kind of inspired to do something online. I'm a very in-person person.
Okay.
But I like the idea of creating a community online where people can join from all over.
Love that.
And kind of just spreading this message that you are not alone. And I don't really know exactly what that looks like. Maybe workshops, maybe, I don't know, but just really expanding on just getting the message out to as many people as possible.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
What I want to close with is, in a way, you've become the person that you needed the most when you were in college. You're creating the thing that you needed the most. I can't think of a more noble pursuit than to do exactly what you've done.
Like from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Yeah.
That is also like really emotional to me in a way where, like, if I had heard from somebody like me in college, it would have changed my life. And so to become that person is something that is so hard to explain and so fulfilling. And so I'm just really grateful that I found this path. I really am. And it came out of pain.
I guess all this is to say that if you're going through a hard time right now, there are good things on the other side. Stick with it. You'll be okay. Yeah. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hey, if the listeners want a round two, maybe we can do it sometime.
I would absolutely love to. Thank you so much for having me. This was truly a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you.